back. We have a special guest with us today, Jai Rodriquez, actor and host.
Yes.
How are you, Jai?
I am holding up well, and I gotta say, I'm joining you on the martini train today.
Yes. Cheers to that.
I have a little Modelo.
Trying to be different.
It's hot. I need like a cool, like refreshing beer.
It is hot. How's everything in LA? How have you been doing with the pandemic and the heat and just the shit that 2020 is?
So I actually was hosting a morning radio show for about 1.5 years, and I was working so much in television, I thought I can't do both. So smart me decides last September, hey, I'm gonna not renew in January. I'm gonna leave. And it was literally when Mercury was in retrograde, and you're not supposed to make big decisions. So about a week later, I was like, I'll take it back. I want to
Right. Yeah.
So, and by the time they got back to me, that was like October. Finally got back to me in December. They're like, we just feel like it's going to be competing doing the morning show and your actual, acting career. So we'll just have you back as a guest host and stuff. So December 20th, my last day, we begin January, and I'm like, I don't have a job. Like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I'm just going to pray I get a pilot. I book The Rookie. I play a murderer. We do Family Feud. I'm thrilled. I shoot this HBO Max series called Equal. I'm like, yes, things are going. And then literally the world shuts down. Now, I'm essentially a gig worker. Basically, every now and again, I pop into TV, but to keep things afloat, I tour with the cabaret show. I throw parties and nightlife, and all of that clearly has gone away. And it was a really scary time. In the beginning, it was just really about, okay, this is gonna be maybe just 4 or 5 months. But now into the fact that this is gonna be here for a while, it's really thinking about creative ways to work from home that are sustainable. Even post-pandemic, and that, for someone like me is tricky because I live pretty humbly, and like I said, I'm a gig worker. I think the anxiety around what's coming next is always kind of with gig workers, but I found a really good community online, and I was sharing with you guys before we went live that I go live every day on my Facebook page. And I kind of found this, I built together this nice little pandemic happy hour grouping of folks and all over the world. And I think that's been keeping me sane, to be honest.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's just rewind just a second, because I've been a huge fan of yours since obviously Queer Eye for the Straight Guy came out. I remember I was a freshman in high school, and I was like, oh my god, I had to secretly watch it. I had Bravo on one channel and Disney on the other.
Straight Guy, and all people are like, and I had to secretly watch it. But that's what we were then. That even though it's technically 4 straight people, they also had to do this. When I'm on sets, the crew will be like, my wife and I used to love your show. And
let's whisper it.
But I want to know, so what made you want to become a performer? Who inspired you?
Yeah, my Aunt Joanne was kind of the performer in my family. My mom had...
Is that Lady Gaga's aunt?
Lady Gaga's aunt had cooler hats. My aunt brought me to my first audition, and it was kind of funny because my cousin came along as well. We're 3 weeks apart, raised as siblings. She and I went totally unprepared. The show was called Runaways. We came in our Sunday best, but we were people of color, and basically the entire room was white people. So we were like, we stand a chance of getting into a show called Runaways. And then, there were parts with Latin last names and stuff, and so we thought, okay. And then when we, get the call, call to find out if we'd gotten cast, my Aunt Joanne, to save, just keep the truth, I got cast and my cousin didn't. So she said we both didn't get the part, and I was like, So I gotta call and double check. So then they're like, no, you got it. And she really kind of sparked this excitement about being a performer. I didn't know you could make money or make a living from it. And so out of there, just did everything I could growing up. I went to performing arts high school, evangelical home. None of that was allowed. I would smuggle in, Broadway cast albums on the burnt CD, and I would write Amy Grant. And that was contraband. Yes.
Wow.
Been there, done that.
Wow.
No TV, no secular music. If it wasn't for the glory of God, it wasn't in my house. And then from there, I go from that existence to playing an HIV positive drag queen in Rent, which is literally how my aunt died in 1996 from full-blown AIDS, her and one of her 2 kids. So HIV has always been my kind of aspect of my life that's been the biggest passion, is the advocacy around it. Because in the 90s, I saw the way she was treated. And then even at 18, wanting to play this character and wanting to take this job was a complete insult and slap in the face to my family. Because it was like, we just lost my aunt 2 years prior to AIDS at the time. And also, I didn't even know anything about what gay was. I mean, it took like 48 minutes to download a picture of a naked man. By the time you got to the network, you're like, TRL is on, I gotta go.
Honestly,
that's the real tea.
Just leave it downloading and turn the monitor off.
Right.
I thought it was a joke. I was like, well, this doesn't work. How are 2 penises? And it certainly wouldn't go where the other stuff comes out. So this is a big colossal joke.
It's a scam.
Right.
Yeah. So performing really, I think the full, like, getting the lights turned on and seeing things in Technicolor wasn't until I was 18 and I got Rent. And that cast became my teachers.
Did you get Rent when you were here in New York? Because you're from New York originally. Or you did? Okay.
So yeah, I auditioned right after senior year, like everyone else and their mother. And I had like 8 callbacks, and they were like, yeah, everyone has 8 callbacks for it. And then and then at 18, they sent me to Toronto to open the first international company in Canada. I did that for a year and then came to Broadway after that. And so I played Angel at 19 on Broadway, which was the youngest person ever cast in a leading role in that show. And it was 1999. Yeah, it was 1999. Things were different, but in our New York little, it was, I think I was exposed to so many different kinds of folks, different gender expressions, certainly people of multiple different ethnicities. So it was surreal in later years when I entered Hollywood proper to kind of see the bias that exists.
Yeah, that's crazy. So would you say your entryway to Hollywood proper was Queer Eye for the Straight Guy?
Yes, so I got so in New York, I had done everything. I had originated 2 off-Broadway roles. Like I said, I did Rent. I did The Producers on Broadway. I mean, I did a couple of feature films, but nothing where I was the lead. I just had great little cool character roles. And I think even though I had done TV and film, Queer Eye certainly put me on the map. I mean, within 1 year, within 2 weeks, we were on the cover Entertainment Weekly. A month later, Oprah, Ellen, Jay Leno, President Bush, who voted strongly against marriage equality, was talking about us lovingly. And we even did an episode with Donald Trump when he was a Democrat. Yes. So that's how crazy that era was.
Talk about bizarre.
That is crazy. So how was your auditioning process for Queer Eye? And like when you finally heard the news that you received the part and you were cast, like where were you? How did you feel? What was that moment like?
Gag gooped, face cracked, because I'm a hustler. I'm like a typical Puerto Rican. I got 16 jobs at all times, and I don't trust nothing. And so on my one night off, I had created this top 40 night at this club that was at the time on 16th and 9th called XL. It was behind the Maritime.
Girl,
XL.
I've been there a few times. It's caused me a lot of pain.
At the time, the best example, the New York Times, I think, kind of sets in the, like, I was sort of like a gay Justin Timberlake. I was, you know, giving you like the ripped jeans and Swarovski crystals, live band, background dancers, background singers. It just wasn't done by a cisgender gay boy in queer nightlife, because they always said it needed to be a diva or a drag queen. And I was like, just give me 2 shows. And that's how like I got on their radar. And then I essentially had an audition which consisted of nothing but sitting across from a woman in an office and taking her on a verbal romantic date as a 35-year-old divorced dad living on Long Island. And so I knew the city like the back of my hand. I could tell you what would be cool to that person that seemed common to me. And so that's what happened. Then she loved the answer, thought it was, you know, interesting and layered. And she was like, how old are you? And I was like, I'm 23. And she's like, you're 26. I was like, wait, what? And then she's like, what school do you go to? I was like, well, I didn't go to college. I just gotten right into it. She's like, you graduated. And then the next day I got a call back with that little information for NBC and Bravo. And imagine it's like a boardroom, NBC on one side, Bravo on the other, and 3 chairs. And there's an empty seat in the 3 chairs set up. And so I sit in that one, and to my right is this brightly dressed blonde guy. And to my left, sort of a gay Buddy Holly. And I don't know why they're there. All I know is I'm there to audition to replace someone on a show. The word reality TV didn't exist then. That wasn't a genre that people were throwing around.
Right.
So there was no reference. They kept saying it's like The View, but it's like Trading Spaces, but like they couldn't, no one had a language. And I just remember the board asking me questions, and the blonde guy, Carson, and, you know, the gay buddy Holly, Ted, would try to discredit me. And I felt so diminished that all I was like, you know what, I'm going to be memorable because maybe NBC will think if I'm funny, I'm right for a sitcom one day on their lineup. And I left so defeated because I thought I didn't get that. These guys were like, you know, messing with every single thing I said. I was there for a chemistry test, but no one told me that. So an hour and a half later, I get a call. I called my agent first. I said, don't ever send me out for anything like that again. I'm so humiliated. I feel so embarrassed. And he's like, you didn't do as bad as you thought. You start Monday. And that is literally how I got the show.
Wow. Look at God.
I mean, that's so amazing. I mean, so you kind of talked about already, you know, being in magazines and President Bush and the current inhabitant of the White House that you had worked with. When did you really realize that Queer Eye for the Straight Guy was going to become the cultural phenomenon that it did? I mean, it changed so many people's lives.
Yeah.
And even till this day.
I think it, you know, it was a slow burn because I think anytime you're on television, you just can't believe people are watching. So we had to shoot 2 more weeks after we launched. And we just went to work as normal. We didn't think nothing. We're like, oh, it's cute. Remember, Bravo TV at that point really only had Inside the Actors Studios and a bunch of small shows that no one really watched.
Right.
I mean,
We remember.
Andy Cohen hadn't taken over.
Like, no one knew what a Vanderpump was. A Vanderpump to me was the thing I would do late at night in the privacy of my own home, in my mind, to James Van Der Beek. You know, so like,
I don't want to.
Oh my God. So when we say, like, you know, when did it take off? When did you know? I think like Entertainment Weekly, the second week we were on the air, was like, you shoot the cover on Friday. And I was like, oh, that's probably big. And I remember I was doing an off-Broadway show. I'd left Rent and I was doing an off-Broadway show. And then I was living in a friend's guest room. It was so small, I would open the door and hit the bed. And at the same time, I was on Entertainment Weekly. So you're holding both. And then time passes.
Yeah.
You recognize, oh, wait,
Tell me about it.
Oh, I have an Emmy now. Oh, I'm a New York Times bestseller. And then you go to, I think when you go to different countries and they're, it's not like you did a role in a movie. They're stopping you with tears in their eyes saying, you know, because of you, it was safe for my uncle to come out. Because of your show, my family's conservative, but they don't know any gay people. And they invited 5 into their homes, a really private space, whether it's your bedroom, your kitchen, wherever your TV is, you know, every Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So I think it took years to answer your question for me to kind of get the impact. And I think when we went to the premiere of the new Queer Eye show for Netflix, they thanked everyone. You know, the head of Netflix comes up and, you know, everyone gets a little shout out. And then they saved us for last. And they're like, and they named our names. All you guys had to stand up. No one else had to stand up. We were like, uh-oh, what's going to happen? Did we get a car? What's going on? And then he was like, without you 5, none of us in this room would be here right now doing this new spinoff. And that was the first time anyone on any like level had sort of thanked us. I mean, we were paid very modestly. You know, like we never got residuals or anything like that. So when you're part of something that's culturally groundbreaking, to know you did something, I think my biggest form of commerce from that time is just quite simply the fact that it had impact and that people felt seen and visible.
Yeah,
and I want to take a moment, and I said earlier, I thank you, because it was one of the first times I remember seeing just like openly gay men live their lives, and it wasn't like some like hokey jokey, you know.
Yeah, we weren't the butt of a joke.
We weren't the butt of a joke or anything like that. So it was like,
it was interesting too, because we got confused for Queer as Folk all the time. I love you on Queer as Folk. I'm like, I'm not hooking up in the bathroom club on TV. Like,
but are you?
But are you? Not on TV.
Not on TV, boo.
I'll never tell. Sips martini.
Yeah.
You got that OnlyFans link?
No, we don't speak of OnlyFans on this part.
Hey, listen, do your thing.
Do you think?
Okay.
just for fans here. Got it.
Just
Exactly.
So with the new reboot of Queer Eye, obviously it's a huge success. It's reaching a new generation, which is great. How do you feel about Karamo being your successor in like the culture
Vulture.
So, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but
yeah, you are.
Yep.
He actually reached out to me, like, so the producer, here's how this went down. it was already being cast and worked on, and I knew people were auditioning for it low key, but I didn't know when it would happen. And I was in Puerto Vallarta because I tour with a cabaret show. So for the holidays, I go to Puerto Vallarta, test my stuff out of the country, and then I bring it in the States in January. And I got a call from the Queer Eye producers on speakerphone. If you get a speakerphone call and you're any kind of performer, it's usually to offer you a job. So they wanted to get ahead of it. They knew the press was going to leak that the show was indeed coming back. And I didn't know what that meant. And so they were like, Jay, we just want to tell you, we're bringing Queer Eye back. And my Puerto Rican, New York City butt just threw my boot in my mouth. And I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Because honestly, like now in my 30s, I feel like I have so much more to offer. And then they said, with an exciting new dynamic cast. And I was like gutted because I felt like we had built this fraternity and I was getting kicked out of it. And then I remember calling my team and like, do you remember how hard it was for you post Queer Eye to get any work as an actor, even get in rooms? And we've worked for over a decade where now people call us to have you come in or offer. And that's through your hard work. And so why would you want to go backwards? And so then when I met Karamo, sort of virtually, we've been passing a couple times, but when we started talking virtually, he was so genuine. And to be honest, the Queer Eye guys and I are going to do something together in September, just a one-off kind of thing. And I think we love working together, but I don't think any of us would want to do the same project. And I think this new show has its appeal to this new generation. And I love that the content's being made. I wish whoever was in power there, and I say it all the time and they probably hate me for saying it, but I feel like it's a big miss to never have us all together in an episode, a Thanksgiving, a Christmas episode. And they've been resistant since day one to that idea. And I don't know why. And listen, for all I know, it could be just they're like, meh, like we just, this is the new cast and everything. But we all love it. We all have mad respect for each other. I was just at Karamo's house pre-pandemic. He's a lovely human, and I just couldn't imagine a better person for that role. And I like that he put his foot down. Like there were so many rules for me about what I could wear, what I couldn't wear. I always fit a cap, could not wear that on the show. I had to wear a blazer. They had to age me up. There were so many pieces of what it was that in the early, we think about the gay explosion in the early 2000s, it was a gay white explosion or white presenting. And be hard pressed to find people of color in the early 2000s outside of a small handful who were given the golden microphone. And so, I'm thankful that this cast checks a lot of boxes in terms of their diversity, and the things that they represent.
Well, I love that you just talked about that Karamo filling a role, and you played some very dynamic roles yourself as an actor over the years. What is one of your favorite roles? I have to tell you, so Nip Tuck is one of my favorite shows ever, and the fact that they had. They named an episode after you, Chaz Darling, so great. So what was first of all, now I have to ask you, what was your favorite memory of Nip Tuck and being on that set with those amazing actors?
Yeah, so I think for me it was so validating because, like I said, I came here so discouraged. SNL had parodied me, specifically Mad TV as well. And
that's an honor. That's how you know you've made it.
Yeah.
It's an honor, but I recognize the half a decade I had of creating a name for myself in New York didn't matter here in LA as an actor. And I was a reality star at the height of it, where it was all table flippy and weave pulling. And I got lumped into that grouping of people. And Ryan Murphy, I auditioned for that part in Nip Tuck, and he gave me a shot. And it honestly got me into so many rooms. And it's probably began my legitimized career. I mean, I'm the first person to ever become series regular from reality who's male presenting. And I think, for me, I know Catherine McPhee was the first female, but I'm the first dude with Malibu Country. And I think my favorite role would probably be this year upcoming on HBO Max's Equal. It's a 4-part miniseries about unsung queer heroes of the 1960s.
Yeah.
Girl, we know.
Oh, yeah.
Jose, sorry. We already know.
But it was dope because that's the Queer Eye producers, and I had to audition. And then they were texting us when we were doing Family Feud, and they're like, "What are you guys doing together? Reunion?" Because they don't do any of this. Anytime we do something together, it's not from the Queer Eye producers. And they were curious, and I was like, "Sorry, I'm late to this group conversation. I was just auditioning for an HBO Max show." And they're like, "Which one?" And I'm like, "Equal." And they're like, "That's our show." And I'm like, So why don't we just cut through the middleman? You guys know I'm an actor. Let's do this. And so then 2 weeks later, they called and they're like, it's perfect. He was one of the first out gay politicians to run for office, didn't get elected, but, was a cabaret star in places like the Black Cat. And it was such a big undertaking because he's sort of a mid-Atlantic, he kind of talked like an old Hollywood, like he had this 1950s sort of cadence to his voice. And as he would back then, and by the way, I changed his pronouns because anything you see of him, most people refer to him as him or her by the closest friends. So I'm not being disrespectful, but it was a huge opportunity, and I'm sad that each of us only get to touch the character. Like it doesn't really have the full depth on what they did, but I hope maybe season 2 that they'll delve deeper, because Jose started the Imperial Court, which is considered one of the first largest, fundraising organizations for the community.
Yeah.
Like
trailblazing.
We know Gary Cosgrove.
Yeah.
We know Gary Cosgrove. Yeah, we know the Imperial Court.
Yeah.
Brayden and I were able to go to an event there that was pretty amazing. We got to see Leah Delaria there at the event.
I love Leah, yeah.
And I just think it's so important that this is happening now in these like revolutionary times, like especially people of color and LGBTQ plus coming together. I think it's beautiful, and I can't wait to see it.
We need to know our history. I didn't know the story. I met Jose, but I didn't know when someone says the Imperial Court and you don't know what that is in its context, and you don't know how long someone was doing what they're doing. When you are walking out your door as a gender nonconforming or a trans person, even today, it is an act of rebellion. And it can't even imagine the weight and magnitude of doing it in the 1960s, specifically when it was illegal. And you met with much more violence than people still are experiencing today. So yeah, I think it's an important part of our communal history that should be taught in schools, and I guess this is the alternative, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
Yeah,
that's so exciting.
That's amazing. And I was going to say that Equal is going to teach the generations that are younger than us, obviously, our history, like you said.
What you say, obviously, for like younger than us?
We are mature.
We are established.
We are mature young adults.
Okay.
All right, I'll take the young.
But I was going to say, like, Queer Eye, the new reboot for Queer Eye is great, and everything that has come from the Obama administration in terms of gay rights is wonderful. But what has been missing, in my opinion, is the history, like where we have come from, where our community is.
Yeah, and also, one of the things I think about now, I just turned 41, and I think about how ageist our community is, and one part of that is because so many of our elders were wiped out due to the HIV.
Yeah.
And forgotten.
Right, and wiped out and forgotten, and their contributions and the things that they fought for in ways that are unimaginable to us today. We stand on their shoulders, and
Amen.
I feel like so often we elevate things that are not as I do come after queer media a lot for and I'm all good. Listen, you want to have a six-pack and you want to be on the cover of that magazine, but let's also elevate those people who maybe don't have the social media following, but are really doing it on the front lines, whether that's people who are advocating for trans rights or fighting for the legislation that protects us all. They should be our superstars as well. And as people go
Amen.
We have to stop discarding our LGBTQ plus elders and instead revering them.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen
to that.
Couldn't have said it better myself. On that note, thank you, Jay.
Thank you,
wow,
Jay,
just
so
preaching
much.
to the community.
Thank you so much, and thank you for just allowing me to share these things. I think I'm so appreciative of how many folks are taking our narratives in their own hands and in our own way, finding our own platforms to reach people who are interested and curious about what we have to say, because our words have power, and just by speaking our truths, we can really change hearts and minds. I believe that.
Amen.
Amen.
And
Hallelujah.
We'll see more of that on Equal, which will air on
In
HBO
October.
Max.
Well, and then I'll come back on and I'll tell you the real tea.
Yes.
Love that.
Yes.
And again, Jay, to echo what Adam said, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We grew up with you. You changed our lives, and what you guys did was extraordinary.
Yes.
I would love to take you guys to drinks when the world is open and I visit New York. So
yes, absolutely.
We would love that.
It's a date.
It's a day.
Cheers,
Cheers.
everyone.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
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 Hello and welcome back
Welcome
to
back.
discuss some
Hello.
hot topics with us. We have entertainment editor David Reddish of Queerty.com.
Hello.
I'm so stupid.
We entertain ourselves.
Hello, David. How are you?
Hi.
I'm doing well. I'm enjoying the show, actually. This is fabulous.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Okay, wait, where are you? By the looks of it, from this Zoom call for our listeners, you are like underneath this space odyssey astrology zone.
She's giving me Venus down.
Okay.
Yeah, Susan Miller house.
I am in Los Angeles, though I like to keep a constant sci-fi vibe about my life. It's just how I am. So
I love
it.
Me too.
Blue is my favorite, so.
I'm in
love
my
it.
pink period, as you can tell.
No,
Everything in my life is like pink hair, pink bedspread.
I've had pink hair. I think it's beautiful. People
Oh,
get weird.
yeah.
I used to, my career just started out, I used to have blue hair all the time, and then I started doing more on-camera work, so that became a big no-no. But
Right.
it's amazing how people react. I'm like, I think it's pretty. I think it's cool, and people are like, oh, you're a freak. You're disgusting. Blue.
Right.
Oh.
Well, we're here to
What
change the
artist.
stereotype.
That's marvelous.
Speaking of stereotypes,
Going right into it.
there has been this thing called the Republican National Convention, which
Okay.
just started, and there are many stereotypes, many archetypes, many types of types.
Many Uncle Tom's.
Right, that too.
Calling it like it
That
is.
too.
Yes.
Calling it
Have
like it
you
is.
been paying attention to the RNC? And if so, like, what are your thoughts, Jesus?
In a word, no. I'm sick of this reality show, and I don't want any of the garbage they're trying to sell me on. I knew that 4 years ago. I've known that every damn day since the election in 2016. I have no interest in watching more Donald Trump. I have no interest in him carting out Melania, his possibly mail order bride, allegedly. I have
Wow.
no interest in
His prisoner.
in watching, his kids spew. They're not interesting. They're not intelligent. They're not, they don't direct policy, and they certainly shouldn't be. They're not qualified
Right.
for it. But then Trump's not qualified for it either, which is why we're living in a disaster of a pandemic right now. He may have
Yeah.
caused the
Yeah.
virus, but he was, so complacent in it. That's why you have, more than 100,000 people dead. So.
Yep. David, did you hear that the Apprentice producers were also the producers of the RNC? Did you hear that?
I didn't hear that, though. I guess
I'm here to tell you.
I mean, the little snippets that I have seen on the PBS NewsHour, for example, are just like bad clips from The Apprentice.
Yeah.
Legit.
Legit and just creepy. Like the whole stage design, everything about it just has this weird, like, quasi-fascist feel to it.
Yeah.
Whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, or whether you like Trump or not, that is not who we are as a nation. That's never been who we are.
Right.
And I don't like seeing our symbols corrupted in that kind of way. The idea that he's going to be giving speeches from the White House infuriates me, because that's not what it's for. It's
Agreed.
Right.
to do the work. But
And that ugly rose garden.
Oh, that remodeled nonsense. I saw a meme today on Twitter that was like, if 6 of your 12 speakers have the same last name as the president, we're kind of like drifting into like North Korea territory.
Yeah.
That's what his master puppeteer Putin does.
It's very much like that. Putin has more mistresses on the side, and allegedly has bastard children, though. I don't know if that's true. I have Russian relatives. They tell me that it is.
Wow.
Oh.
Okay, Mary Trump coming out with a new book.
I mean,
Thank you, sis.
I mean, even with it though being like
Yeah, please go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, even with the whole thing being like it's a huge joke, it's just also riddled with lies. I know you probably saw Kimberly Guilfoyle, who came on and she was just like, "Oh, my mother is an immigrant from Puerto Rico, and I'm first born American." It's like, do you know Puerto Rico is part of the United States? Like, what?
You're
don't.
not an immigrant if you're from Puerto Rico.
You're not an immigrant, so you're telling a lie.
So ignorant.
And but I just feel really bad though. Well, I don't feel bad for him anymore. Actually, the base of his who actually think that Puerto Rico is not a part of the United States. I don't get it. I don't know why the lies are continuing, and I think it's just so dangerous and hurtful to us.
Let me ask you a question about that. What is more frightening? The idea that they would lie about something that simple, or the idea that maybe they're not actually lying, maybe they're just that ignorant.
No, that's what I think it is. Yeah. It's just ignorance.
You know what I think it is?
Out of it. And if you are out of it, you have no purpose working in the American federal government. Period.
You know what I think it is, which is even scarier, is they do know that they are lying and they do know that it's wrong, but they know that a third of the country doesn't know. And they're playing to that, which makes me infuriated.
Or worse, they don't care.
Right.
But what's the end goal? What's the end goal with that kind of narrative? Because it's just simply not true.
It's all about power. That's all this has ever been about. And that's why people continue to support Trump, even though he insults them, even though he lies to them, even though they know he's completely inept and has no business attempting what he's doing. And even if you do like him, the past 4 years have been such a disaster. I don't know why you would support him. He clearly has no qualification. He is not up to this job, period. Like,
right.
Let's all move on with it. Whether you think he's a good guy or a bad guy, he is incapable of doing this job.
Mm-hmm. And more people are jumping on that bandwagon, like Kellyanne Conway, who is finally leaving. It's just like, and her daughter came out and was trying to get emancipated.
Help me.
Help me.
It makes you wonder, like, how much of her daughter's obviously not 4 years old. She's been around a while, but she's really emerged in the past few months as a sort of social media personality.
Yeah. Well, she's going crazy just like all of us. Can you imagine living in that?
Oof. Well, why would you want to, first of all? But more importantly, it makes me wonder, is it any coincidence that Kellyanne is leaving now after her daughter has become both a vociferous critic of Trump and this huge celebrity because of it? I have a feeling she was probably pressured to leave, but we'll find out about that, probably a year or two down the road.
I know, but she's still going to speak at the RNC. Like, I think it's very
a mess.
It's very strange. I don't know.
We're living in strange times. There's no question about that. But part of the American character, for better or worse, has always been this sort of, we kind of like not knowing anything. You look at the old know-nothing parties, like from the 19th century. This is nothing new at all. And it's something that the founding fathers were really, really scared of. The idea that populism of the ignorant would suddenly start dictating to everybody else who was actually good at what they do. So, no, I'm not watching the RNC, is my answer to your question.
In a nutshell.
Well, can we assume that you're watching the DNC, the Democratic National Convention?
I did watch the DNC, and I have to tell you, in complete sincerity, I felt really, really good.
Why?
I was not somebody that watched it wall to wall. I've never quite seen the value in that. And I just have too much to do. I can't sit there and watch the whole thing.
Right.
But I did see the highlights. Obviously I saw Vice President Biden speak. I saw Senator Harris speak. I saw Barack Obama speak. I saw Michelle Obama speak, who gave me all the feels because she's got to get to the United States. She's that woman.
Yes.
Just everything. She's amazing. I came out feeling really, really good, both because Kamala Harris, who I've admired for years and years as a Californian, did so well with her speech, and really I feel like is a voice for the future of the party.
Right.
And I feel like this is a unity ticket in the sense that Joe Biden is, I think, a good person. Whether or not you like his policies, I think he's basically a good man.
Yeah, which is so different from what we have. A good person. What is that?
We haven't seen a good person in quite some time.
Biden, is easily the most qualified person to ever run for president, and that says something after you're coming up after Hillary Clinton, who was also ridiculously qualified.
Yeah.
He gave me the kind of hope that I wanted as a Democrat, as an American voter. The unity between he and Senator Harris feels like the bridging of the gap between the older sort of blue dog generation and the younger, millennial Gen Z, more socially, I guess, socialist inclined, youth. It feels like we can do this together. And that gives me hope for November. That gives me hope that, we're still the United States. We've been through all kinds of crazy stuff. We bounce back. That's what we do.
Yeah. Well, here's hoping.
So
we have hope, and what I loved. You spoke about Michelle Obama very briefly. What I continue to love is that when people from that particular base, and I'm going to say Republican, I'm going to say from Trump's base, get so upset, all they can say about her is, "Oh, she looks like a man," and this, and it's like, so you're saying that you're trying to say she's strong because you're talking about her arm definition and things like that. There's nothing else you can say about Michelle Obama because she's telling the truth.
Well, I think you're absolutely right about that. And I think, a lot of that same criticism, the criticism of Obama had a lot of those same overtones.
Yep.
Particularly the really ugly attacks saying he's not an American citizen. He's a closet Kenyan. He's a Muslim,
Oh God, yeah.
All these things that are just complete horsepucky, not true at all. That any rational person knows are not true.
Yeah.
But it's like any smear, like just throw anything at him because that's all we can do. We can't debate him on points because we know he's right. We can't, attack him because he is not a corrupt person. He's actually a good man trying to do a good job.
Right, and you hear about people saying that Kamala Harris is a whore or saying things about Michelle Obama, and it's crazy because I can't go to Pornhub and type in their name, but I can Melania Trump. So it's very interesting that you can find her nudity, but you can't find theirs.
We have to take a break. I'm
just getting to the real point of it.
Spill the tea, sis.
Stephen Ross is a slight producer for this podcast. He said, "Go to break."
Speaking of Pornhub, whatever. I just saw Bella Thorne is on OnlyFans,
and it is on Pornhub, by the way.
And she broke the record and made $1 million in 24 hours. Like,
okay.
Please tell me she's donating it to charity.
I'm sure she's not.
I'm sure she's not. Why did she start OnlyFans? To get money?
Maybe this reflects my advanced age. I don't know, but I was taught you don't show your bits in pictures. Growing up, you don't take naked pictures because those will come back to damage you later. Because
absolutely.
Now we're living in an era where it's like, is everybody going to have an OnlyFans? Like, will Pulitzer Prize winning journalists be showing schlong? I don't know.
I mean, maybe
that's where we're at now. Listen, if it can work for Rose from the Titanic, I might think.
You're willing to drown for that almost?
Well, I'd just be willing for my naked artifacts to be shown.
In the beginning, it was like OnlyFans was made for like. Wasn't necessarily for
like nudity.
For nudity.
That's a good point, Adam.
It was like Shea Coulee just made a OnlyFans, and hers free to subscribe, and you get to see all her behind the scenes. You get like exclusive content. But that, speaking of Drag Race, can we speak on Jeffrey Bauer Chapman and how we bullied him off of the Twitter?
Wow.
How do you feel about my baby?
I mean, look, whether you like him,
just because he's my baby, you don't have to.
Whether you like him or not, I admire him first of all as an actor. I think he's a very talented man. In terms of the advice he gives on Drag Race, it's subjective. It's reality television.
Right.
Fine. I don't understand. And this gets to, this is a symptom, I think, of a larger cultural issue that we will have to talk about at some point, which is like sort of Rage Nation. How Twitter, specifically Twitter, but I guess this is true of all social media also. But particularly with Twitter, it's just this bastion of rage, oftentimes from people that don't understand the issues, oftentimes from people that aren't even real. They're bots created by Korea, North Korea or Russia or China or whoever else that just wants to fan the flames of division. And you lose nuance. It's people don't really listen to each other. They just speak. And
Right.
You know, in civil rights throughout American history, the way progress has been made is by people sitting down and actually saying, okay, let's have a real conversation. Please tell me what you're feeling right now and answer my questions, and I will do my best to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's harder and harder to do, and we're even kind of getting to the point where it's like, we don't even want to have the conversation. If you try to have the conversation, you get attacked for trying to facilitate it.
Right.
Yeah.
As a journalist, I've had that happen before. I won't mention names, but
Please do.
it's a frustrating thing because it's like, look, I'm just trying to give you facts.
Right.
But people want to hate on the media for trying to hold that kind of conversation. So I
in this era of fake news, have you ever experienced, whether it's from an audience member, a reader, them critiquing you for being fake news?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Really?
I have. So, and it infuriated me. It infuriated everyone that I work with. Trump bots. They were not real people. I was able to determine.
Right.
But Trump bots started attacking me on my social media. Now, for your listeners, you can find my social media handles on the internet pretty easily. I don't publish them with every piece that I write. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I did a piece on the women's soccer team and on Megan Rapinoe and how they had been very critical of Trump. And, how there was a moment where a couple of the players were carrying an American flag and somebody accidentally dropped part of it and picked it up. And they were praising this woman for, her great American spirit. And as they're doing this on Fox News, this live feed, she runs over and kisses her girlfriend. She was not out publicly up to that point in time. So we run a story saying, this is the Trump supporters' worst nightmare. The woman that they're praising turns out to be a lesbian.
Right.
And all these bots started attacking me all over social media, on Twitter and particularly on Instagram. I know they were bots because all of these comments appeared at the exact same time. There was not space between them. This was clearly an automated or coordinated effort, saying Trump has been great for LGBTQ people. Trump loves gay people. We love gay people. Why would you say that? And I'm like, well, his policies say otherwise. All the comments he makes say otherwise. His staff says otherwise. Reality says otherwise. So tell yourself whatever you want, but that's just simply not true. So that was an experience where, I think in a weird way it's kind of flattering that you piss off people in that way, and that you have you piss off people to the point where they're willing to throw online robots at you to try and smear you or make you look bad or make you feel bad or whatever they were trying to do.
Well, if it can change the 2016 election, it can surely change an individual's mind.
It surely can. That again speaks to the nuance that oftentimes gets lost in the conversation when you have to pack something into 200 characters or whatever it is.
Right.
The idea that on social media we read headlines, we don't read stories, and headlines in the era of the internet are not always reflective of the information in a story.
Yeah.
They are, the equivalent of the old paperboy. If you've ever seen that hideous movie Newsies, of them, making up headlines to get people to buy newspapers.
Serious movie.
I know you and my younger brother. So I'm the gay one. My brother is as straight as can be, but he was the one obsessed with Newsies growing up. I don't know what that's about. I could not watch it. I thought it was so just like out of place.
Oh no!
And I love Christian Bale. I would watch him do anything. I don't need to hear him sing ever again.
Who?
Just saying.
Well, I mean, look, we've talked about the negatives, of social media. I think also it can be a great place for memories and stuff. Obviously, earlier this week, it was really refreshing for me to see all the memories of Chi Chi DeVayne, who passed away from RuPaul's Drag Race. And being able to see that and seeing how many lives she touched, not only by fans, but her sisters who were just like really affected by it.
Yeah.
I mean, did you see any stories that came out about Chi Chi that really touched you? And, how did that affect, queerty, like the queer community? Like, she was a big icon.
Mm-hmm.
She was a big icon. May she rest in peace. And obviously we had a great outpouring of sorrow at her passing, which was too young in my mind.
Yeah.
what you say there is really, really interesting, because one of the great virtues of social media, and it does have them, particularly with something like Facebook, I learned, I'll share with you guys, I've never talked about this publicly. I learned that a good friend of mine in high school, who was, by the way, one of the best writers I've ever known, completely natural poet, journalist, essayist, just a really dynamic person. She was a really intelligent, fun person to be around. I, wished her a happy birthday on her Facebook wall and learned she was dead. I did not get this memo from her or her family at all until somebody actually alerted me to it. The beauty of social media is I can go back and look at our interactions. I can look at the times I posted on her wall. I can look at the times she posted on mine. I can look at her pictures. I can look at the things that she talked about. I can go back in Facebook chat and see the last time I talked to her and realized it was within a week of her very sudden death. Things like that are a comfort, I think. And in a strange way, we hear in science fiction about like the idea of clinical immortality, that we're all gonna be uploading our minds into computers. It is kind of that. I mean, it's sort of like the next step down from you just go live in the computer when you're done in the physical world. And so when I need her, when I need my friends that have passed, they're right there. And there is something really sweet and sort of peaceful about that, I think.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. Yeah. What a beautiful way to. Oh yeah, may she rest in power for sure.
Yeah, rest in power.
What a beautiful way to wrap up this conversation.
All right, did I get too morose? I hope
not at all.
No, not at all.
Because it was very nice, like everybody seeing like all their stories and all like the pictures that people would post. Yeah, that was nice. And because obviously she was like a huge, like there was never anybody that was like, obviously I would hope nobody would post anything negative, but like everyone literally was like, she was the most like genuine, kind person.
Well, even as a viewer, when you like,
exactly,
you
could feel the heart and soul.
The heart and the soul is what made her progress in the competition so much further than those bitches that didn't have a heart.
She was authentic. There was no bullshit. It was, this is who I am, and this is what I'm going to give you. If you don't like it, you don't like it.
Right.
Or like Derek Barry, who was like shitting on everybody from All Stars 5.
Well, we actually have Derek on the.
Yes. Derek is up next.
The delusion.
No, the delusions. But Mayhem shut that shit down. She said, what we're not gonna do is bring down our sisters for no reason.
Right. Yeah.
Especially, girl, you were eliminated first. Like, just be humble and be grateful that you were on the show.
You were in the hotel room while we were filming.
She was.
Well, thank you, David. Thank you for joining a little hot topics discussion.
Come back with us anytime.
I would love that. I will tell you all my dirty celebrity interview stories.
We love
the tea.
We'll do a whole episode of that.
Yes.
Probably could fill it up. I'll tell you, most everybody's pretty nice. There are one or two that are pretty nasty, but I won't say who they are now.
Well, we want to hear about the one or two.
I want to know the nasty.
I'm not. You'll have to have me back. I'm not going to give you the.
All right.
So, David, for our listeners, where can they find you and your writing?
Queerty.com. I'm entertainment editor. You can see my pieces daily, or you can visit fine booksellers like Amazon and check out my 3 novels that are in.
Okay.
Yes, 3 novels. Yes. Love it.
So I would love that because I get a check for it.
Okay. We all need a check.
It is very important.
Okay.
Get that bag, baby.
Secure the bag.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David, so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you for joining us.
Be safe out there.
All right. Bye.
You too.
Bye.